What's up, guys? What's up, cycling fanatics? Welcome back to another race breakdown video. Today we are in Monster, that's in the Netherlands. It's in the southwest of the country, and these criteriums are well known to be having a good prize money payout. So this is the Pro Elite category, and there's always a lot of good riders showing up. And everybody's really motivated to get those preems. So here we go. I've raced this race 2 years ago. Back then I was still in a lower category, but it's a mixed category, this race. So I was racing here, and I remember this was a very fast and very tough race for me back then. I'm gonna take you through the first lap to show you how the lap is. It's a figure 8. So there's 8 corners in only like 1800 meters. That's a little over a mile. So there's a lot of corners, but most corners were really fast. The one we just went through was a little bit sharper. And there's another sharp corner on the other side of the course. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about how a team can really work together in a criterium, and how they can really control the race. We had an Australian pro team who was riding here. And they were here with a lot of riders. And they are the guys that played out very good teamwork that we're going to talk about in this race. But first, some basic statistics of this race. Like I said, it was Pro Elite category. The lap is 1800 meters. The average over 75 kilometers was over 42.5. It was like 42.6 kilometers an hour. My average power was 310 watts and normalized was 340 watts. So it was a pretty tough race. It was very fast, and like I said, a lot of preems. So there was a lot of money to be won. And in general, all these preems in Holland, they would go 5 or 8 riders deep. So the first 8 riders that cross the finish on a bell lap would get a preem. So there's a lot of opportunities. So here we go through the first lap, and I was actually not really completely fit. I crashed 4 days earlier on another criterium where my front tire blew up, and I crashed, and I got back on the bike and I crashed again. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage because I was not rolling my camera yet. The only proof I have is a picture of my busted up arm and leg. And although my leg was still, or my hip was still hurting a lot, I still wanted to race because I really needed some race rhythm, some practice, and just to get my muscles moving again. So here we are, only 5 kilometers and about 7 minutes into this criterium, and this is where the breakaway is gonna form. So pay close attention. I'm gonna walk you through it. I am nowhere near the front, probably like 25-30 riders deep, and here it sort of clumps up, the speed drops, and there's a couple riders who have attacked, but there's riders in this group that don't respond and they just let them roll. And right now you can just see 2 riders go around the corner. They have a little gap, and those 2 are actually the last one that were on the break. So right now there's a gap. I'm in maybe wheel number 10, and we're going pretty fast. So I thought like, okay, speed is going up. These guys are gonna chase, no problem. And we're only so early in the race. So yeah, I mean, who is gonna let this go? The guy in red here on the left, he jumps. Nobody really reacts. He got on the breakaway as well. I didn't react. Super stupid. I should have jumped on his wheel straight away. But now I come to the front and I see who is in the front, and it's the Australian team. So there's 2 riders out of the Australian team, 54 and 32. So the 32 here is in the front, and pay attention what he's doing. He's not chasing and he's blocking. Then 54 is going for it. So they've established a gap towards the front, and then there's only one more rider who's gonna jump for it, and 32 is just gonna let him go, of course, because he wants his teammate to try and jump, and nobody follows. I don't respond again, so stupid of me again. It's like I just had the idea, we're so early in the race, and we're probably just gonna chase it down at some point, and we'll get it back. But that never happened. So this is how the breakaway established. A couple riders jumped, then a couple, like 1 or 2, they chased it, and then 2 singles jumped towards it. They all came together into one group, and that formed the breakaway. So right now we've got 3 Australians in the break, and there's like 3 or 4 of these guys of the same team who are in the peloton, and they are the ones that are really gonna cover all the moves of basically anyone who's gonna jump towards the break. And that's really was really apparent in this race, and that's what I'm gonna really show in the coming video. So yeah, it's not even 10 minutes in the race, and the breakaway is established. They got a gap really fast, and like I said, I thought it wasn't that big of a deal. At some point we would just start chasing. 2 years ago when I raced this race, there was, you know, attacks, breakaways, and everything got back together for the first hour and a half. It was all super fast. So I thought, well, if it's gonna go like 2 years ago, then there's no problem. Right now you see Jordi, my teammate in the red jersey. He goes to the front, he starts hammering it down, and straight away he's got an Australian rider on his tail. This Australian rider is part of the same team, but he's wearing the Aussie national jersey. So right here again, Aussies are chasing, and it wasn't like they were going super slow and they were really messing up everything, but they were not going as fast as others, and not fast enough to chase and bring back the breakaway. So right now again, you can see Jordi going up front, and the only one on his wheel is an Australian rider. A guy jumps towards it, and then again an Australian rider. So every time somebody would jump, there was an Aussie on his tail. And that's really how they cover every single move of the peloton. And what they do is they would jump with anyone who's trying to bridge, or who's trying to narrow that gap towards the break. They would go in your 6, and as soon as you flick your arm and you want someone to take over, they would just not pull through. Right now I'm going for it. I figured, okay, we need to start going hard, and we need to start chasing, or this gap is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe if I attack hard enough, I would only get 1 or 2 riders with me who are willing to really work, and then with the 2 or with the 3 of us, we can give it a shot at bridging towards the break. So I'm going full gas here, initially by jumping really hard to try and get away, and then just pull through with a lot of speed. And going by yourself through these corners, you are very fast. So that's a big advantage that you have when you are by yourself. So I've got one rider, Swabo, on my wheel. He takes over, he pulls, and I look back and I see no one else except the Aussies are really following. So there's no way to start going hard if there's a couple Australian riders on my wheel. So here there's a couple other riders, but we never really got organized, and we never really started rotating fast enough. Same deal here. One rider takes over. The Australian rider goes on his wheel straight away, so he's again in second wheel of the group. And then when it's time for the next rider to take a pull, the Aussies just let it roll. Jasper, he's going for it, and I was going with him, and I figured if we go together, we're stronger and we can pull really hard. So I'm gonna fast forward here because he did a massive pull. I think he almost pulled for an entire lap. He was going really fast, and I was just on his wheel, ready to take over and to go fast and trying to maybe get a gap maybe break the line somewhere, break up the peloton, and at least break away off the peloton. So right now I take over, and we're not even 20 minutes in the race. It's an hour and 45, so we're already burning up a lot of really big matches right now. But yeah, we missed out on the breakaway, and the thing is, all these preems are all 8 riders deep, and there were already 8 riders up the road. So any other preem that would be given out would be for the first 8 riders in that break, and we would just get nothing. So there's like every reason to go full gas and try to chase this down. Right now I'm yelling to the front that they should, you know, keep rotating, because the Australian rider was again in second wheel doing nothing. So if you want to keep rotating, you want to keep organization, you want to keep it going, it's actually the third or even the fourth rider that should start overtaking the Aussies. You know, the rider that is blocking or that is covering for his teammates to keep the rotation going. And if you don't do that, every time one of the covering guys, you know, one of the blocking riders gets in front, there's a moment of nothing, and that's a couple extra seconds for the breakaway. So every time this happens, every time the gap only gets bigger instead of smaller. So right now we've got 2 Australians in the front, and like I said before, it's not like they're doing nothing. They were actually still going pretty fast, but they're going not fast enough to, you know, to make this gap any smaller, which is obvious, which is, you know, their tactics, and they know what they're doing. So right now there's 2 riders of that team in front of me, and I just overtake them, because I know if I hang behind them, then, you know, they just keep on rolling in this really comfortable speed, but that's not what we want. We want to go faster. So I overtake, I push a little harder, go through the turn, and then I just hope that someone else is on my wheel and overtakes straight away, so we can get this rotation going. But no, you know, the guy on my wheel was the Australians. So as you can see, every time they would stay within like the first 5 to 10 riders, and most of the time they were in second or third wheel, and that really messed up the organization, making it pretty much impossible to bridge this gap. Right now behind Jasper, and this was such a weird moment. I have no idea what happened. I talked to him after the race. Let's play this again. He's anticipating on the guy in front of him to fly out the corner and crash. So he unclips his pedal and goes moto style through this corner. I actually braked hard, and my rear tire almost went off the ground. So I did like a stoppie coming in through this turn. Super crazy. But we stay on the bike. So luckily no other crash. I've had too many crashes in the last couple weeks. So I was really happy to keep the rubber side down for once. Anyway, like I said, there's a big tactics going on right now with the Australian team. And what was helping them a lot was someone on the sidelines telling them what the gap was towards the breakaway. So they have a guy who's timing the gap and telling them if they should go faster or slower. And he's right here, the guy on the right. This was their team manager or guy from the team, whatever. And he was telling them all the time what the gap was. Like I noticed him yelling 30 seconds. And then he would go with his hands like, oh, take it easy or go faster. And this was really helping them to keep track of the gap. Right now, two Australian riders up front again. And the second rider, he just steers out. Which is kind of a crappy move, because now Jasper in front of me has to close this gap with his own power. And the other Australian rider is just going to go behind me or behind the next rider to again mess up, you know, the rotation. So Jasper is taking a massive pull again, because he knows the same as me. If we don't do it, it's not going to happen. We need to take long pulls, so at least, you know, when we are pulling, we can make a difference. But guess who's the next rider that's gonna overtake me when I go off the front? It's the 2 Aussies. So, you know, it wasn't really working. We were pulling really hard for a while, and then the Aussies were just on our tail, and no one else would overtake fast enough. And maybe they had riders in the breakaway. I wasn't sure exactly. or they were tired, or they were feeling like, okay, it's fine. But I was really, I really saw this was not going to happen, so I started falling back a little bit to recover. And this just kept on going for a while, and I was in the back a little bit to recover. Then I went back to the front, tried again, did a monster pull together with Jasper, and again, you know, the riders, the Aussies were all in the front, all over the front, and just staying in the front. I think it's the Australian champion riding this Criterium. I don't know. He's got an Australian like national stripes jersey, so I assume he's the national champion of whatever category. But they were really strong. That was well noticeable. Currently, we've got a preem lap. So, like I said, all the preems were going to the first 8 riders who were in the break. I think there were 11 riders in that breakaway, so we didn't get any preems. But on 2 occasions, the race direction gave a preem lap to the peloton. So right now, we are racing for 8 preems. So the first 8 riders that cross the finish of the peloton will get a preem. And like I said, in Holland, it's 8 riders deep. So the first preem would be like 25 euros. And it steps down in little steps from there. So versus USA, where it's only 1 rider who crosses the finish first, he gets $50 or $100 sometimes. In these races, it's the first 8 riders, and the preems are a little lower, but you get way more chance to get a preem if you are somewhat near the front. So right now, I guess, you know, I've been doing a lot, but not winning anything in this race. So let's go for a little preem and go for a little sprint. So right now, it was, I think, the second of the 2 preems that we got as a peloton, and I sprinted to the 4th place. So at least I had a little prize in this race, but you know, it's only enough for the fuel. Alright, coming over start finish here, we've got like 10 kilometers to go, and the speed is pretty high right now. So something in my head was saying maybe in the end of the race, you know, it happens a lot in these criteriums, people are starting to attack and attack and attack. Maybe the speed just goes up a lot, and we'll catch his breakaway back. But spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I do want to show you this. I have a decent gap, as I talked about in previous video on the Dutch criteriums. Very good way to close a gap in front of you is to keep your momentum through a turn. So I'm not gonna go full gas right now to close this gap straight away. I'm just gonna not brake so hard and let it roll faster through this corner, and here we go. After the turn, I don't have to accelerate that hard, and I'm on his wheel without any waste of power. So anytime you get a gap towards the guy in front of you and there's a sharp corner coming up, don't worry too much. Just take more speed, carry that momentum through the corner, and you'll close the gap easily. Right now we're coming closer towards the finish. We've got about 4 laps, 3.5 laps to go. And as you can see, it's gonna go faster and it's gonna be more chaotic. 3 laps to go right now. I'm trying to keep position, which is pretty hard because once you lose your position, it's hard to get back to the front. And I was getting cramps like a couple laps before the end. My legs were doing pretty well until that moment. I started getting cramps, and I was thinking about trying to jump away maybe in the last lap to avoid a crazy chaotic sprint, which is what it was gonna be. But then I had these cramps. I'm like, okay, legs are crap, and I'm just gonna try and follow, try to keep my position as good as I could, and maybe there would be a sprint. But I already knew it was probably gonna be a sprint for at least 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 corners before the finish, because it was so narrow, it was so hard to overtake anyone. So keeping position right now is very important. It was going crazy, it was pretty hectic. So I was just trying to get into my rhythm, and I didn't want to take too much risk. I already crashed too many times in the last race. So right now I'm just not doing anything stupid, but trying to stay safe. This corner was always sort of a sprint because it was very sharp, and coming out of this corner in a good position was very important because, like I said, it was very hard to overtake. Most of this race was single file. Right now, bell lap, last lap, and we're going to take you through the entire last lap. And as you can see, turning into this corner, it's like 4 or 5 riders wide instead of single file, which is like it's been all day. So, and that's every corner from now. Every corner we would steer in with 4 or 5 riders next to each other. So it was kind of hectic. I'm falling back a little bit too far right now, which I did notice. So any chance to make up some places, I would try to get it. You can obviously just sprint full gas, try to overtake everyone on the side, but that would just waste of energy, and then you won't have any sprint left on the end. So try to do it in a smart way. It was already pretty tough to just keep the wheel of the guy in front of you. As you can see right now, you know, accelerating with 1,000 watts for a while, which is no big deal in the beginning of a race, but we've been doing an hour and 45 minutes of tough racing. I've been pulling a lot in this race. So yeah, my legs were tired. I was having cramps, so I couldn't go full gas because my leg would probably lock up. Half a lap to go right now. Taking the insides. That's what I learned from my previous race. So it's very good to take the insides if you want to keep your position or overtake a few riders. Coming up to that sharp corner right now. As I said, it was a sprint into the corner. We're going 50k an hour into the wind. Right now I'm on the outside, I know, but the next corner is going to go to the right. So I figured if I take a fast outside line, then I would be on the inside. But I kind of messed up. I wasn't going as fast as I wanted to. So I actually lost a few places. I did get on the inside here, but I couldn't do anything with it. And this is what I had to deal with coming into the last turn right now. So we've got 190 degree to the left, and then it's the finish. Australian rider here, he's not going for it anymore. So going through the corner, and you see it's single file, everybody's sprinting, and yeah, there's not a lot of opportunity to really do anything in that last part. So that's it. I ended up in 24th place, which was not that bad considering the double crash I had only 4 days before this race, and I wanted to get some race rhythm. I did learn a lot today again. Guys, let me know what you think of this race. I know it was stupid that I didn't chase those riders in the beginning, but there's a lot to consider, and it's always going fast, and looking at the footage after the race is always easy, but when you're in the race you have to make decisions in a split second, and sometimes you misjudge the situation. I was still racing a bit conservative right now, and I've learned again today that I should be more assertive and take more chances. In order to win, you need to be willing to lose. I think that's nice to end up this video with. Guys, thanks for watching. Drop me a like. Gonna see you next time. See ya!